In northern Massachusetts, up by the New Hampshire border, is a small Episcopal church that was showing its age. All Saints in West Newbury was nearly 100 years old, and the small congregation was having trouble keeping up with the much-needed repairs. The front steps were cracking, the brickwork was falling apart. The new rector, Bill Murdoch, was rummaging in his office closet one day when he discovered an old painting that had been stored there.
It was only hanging in the church briefly for a short period of time, roughly around 87, 86. And the people's opinion of the painting when it hung up was that it was pretty ugly.
A parish history referred to the painting as a 19th century copy of Madonna and Child by the Italian Renaissance painter Andrea del Sarto.
Apparently a lot of the parishioners did not like the painting. They thought it was an ugly painting. So they decided they wanted the painting taken down.
The painting had also been hung in the church once before, decades earlier, but met with the same disfavor on the part of the congregation.
About 40 years ago, it appears that it was taken down from hanging in the church and was stuck in the attic of the rector's house. Actually, one of our parishioners who was going up there and helping clean the attic, she found it.
And I came across this painting that was on the floor. At first, it didn't seem to be a painting. It looked like a big board. And I stood the painting up and looked at the other side. It was a beautiful painting. It was covered with dust, but I also noticed that there's a beautiful gold frame separated from it on the other side. That gold frame looked like it belonged to this painting.
When it was rediscovered in the mid-'80s, after 25 years in an attic, I think it looked kind of musty, but it was hung up behind the choir in the church again. And from what I understand, it wasn't long after that some people said, you know, I really don't like that there. It really doesn't go with the rest of the church. And that's when it wound up in the rector's closet.
When Murdoch found it, he decided to have it appraised, and a local art dealer confirmed it was a copy that was probably done in the 19th century. Value? About $45,000, money they badly needed for the church repairs. But before selling it, Murdoch decided it would be prudent to have a second opinion, and sent pictures of the painting to the New York auction houses. At Sotheby's, they were reviewed by Christopher Apostle, director of Old Masters.
It had been recorded in the church archives as a gift given by a friend of the parish as a 19th century copy of an Andrea del Sarto, of which there are many in the United States. He was highly admired.
But Apostle knew that the Del Sarto Madonna and Child, which was in a Canadian museum, the one that was believed to be the original, was in fact a copy.
And I could tell that there was something very intriguing about the situation. It was in an old church. You know, they weren't sure what they had. They had an idea that it could be something good, but they weren't sure. And I just knew that I had to get on a plane.
The first auction house that came to the parish and actually saw it walked through the door and literally took his breath away. Then he took out of his valise a book that had Del Sarto on the cover, and it was the life history of Del Sarto and his work, and flipped open the page and then showed me the painting of the Madonna and Child by Del Sarto that's hanging in the Metropolitan Museum in Ottawa. And I said, oh, so this is a copy of that painting? And he said, no, the painting in Ottawa we know is a copy. And what we don't know is we've never found the original until now.
Who was Andrea del Sarto? Not the most famous painter of his generation. He spent most of his life in Florence, the capital of Renaissance Italy, where his contemporaries were Michelangelo and Da Vinci.
And so there was no question in my mind, that it was 16th century, and very possibly by Andrea himself. I am always very cautious in saying these things right out because I knew that I'd have to do the research and prove my case.
The painting was removed from the closet and taken to Sotheby's, where Christopher Apostle and his staff went about the job of authenticating it.
In this particular case, we found several scientific techniques very useful. We were able to use infrared reflectography to look through the paint surface itself and see the original carbon underdrawing of the artist. And there are several very interesting signs and sort of clues to how and who painted the painting.
The underdrawing is the preliminary sketch an artist usually makes before starting the painting. Since there are many good examples of other Del Sarto drawings available for comparison, the reflectography showed that the underdrawing below the painted surface of the Madonna and Child was clearly by Del Sarto. This painting, which had been tossed in the attic, collecting dust for decades, was in fact an original Del Sarto.
There is some record in our memorial book about the painting being touched up, if you will, by local house painters. We don't know what they did, okay, but and maybe we shouldn't say that, I don't know.
After the rediscovery of the Del Sarto here in February 1999, I realized that for 4 years I had been keeping the original Andrea del Sarto's painting of the Madonna and Child in this closet and hanging my coat over it.
All Saints operates on an annual budget of $188,000 a year. The last Del Sarto to go to auction brought almost $400,000. The painting, which had been hidden away because nobody much liked it, could turn out to be a much-needed windfall for the small church.
The very best use and stewardship of this piece of art would be to sell it, not only for the monetary value, but also for the possibility of it making its way to a museum where it could be publicly displayed and enjoyed by a variety of people.
So Reverend Murdoch and 25 or so members of the congregation traveled to New York for the auction.
The auction itself was filled with excitement and anticipation. It was such a high moment for us that it felt almost surreal to me and to many other of the folks that were there.
When the actual auction was beginning for our painting, I was a nervous wreck. I was a nervous wreck.
Lot number 3, the Andrea del Sarto. Start the bidding at $600,000. $600,000 now it's $625,000, $650,000 now. At $650,000, $75,000, $700,000 now it's $7. At $725,000, $750,000, $775,000. At $775,000 now. Any further bids? Any further? $800,000 we have. At $800,000 now it's selling at $800,000. At $825,000 I have. $850,000. $875,000 now. $900,000. You at $925,000 in the second row. We have $950,000 at $975,000. $1 million for it now. $1 million. Any further advance then? Fair warning then. $1 million. Sold $1 million.
The church's long-forgotten 16th century painting, Madonna and Child by Andrea del Sarto, sold for $1.1 million, including buyer's commission. It took just 2 minutes for the bidding to fetch a new world record price for a Del Sarto.
The value of the painting is, in fact, 5 times the annual budget of the parish, as we now have it.
So the work has already begun on fixing up the church. The brick is being repointed, and there are plans for a completely new front entry. But that's the least of what they're doing with the money.
Let's create another email in addition to this and send it to India so that they know the progress that we've made and that they can anticipate this check for the purchase of that home for the lepers there. And now, after the sale of the painting, we have an entirely new opinion of the painting.